Okay, good morning everybody. For those of you who are here last night, welcome back. I can't believe you're up for more of it, and that's great. For those of us, just by show of hands, how many people are here now that weren't here last night? Just what sort of a... Okay, great. Well, welcome. I hope what you were doing last night was really fun because you missed a really interesting evening. And hopefully you'll get to find out about it more today. So today's a little bit different from last night in that I don't know if you realize it or not, but you're all literally a hand-picked group chosen with the help of neighbourhood representatives from all over the city. We asked them to tell us who the real sustainability champions were in their neighbourhoods, the organisations with capacity, passion and product, and you're the result. So you're really special. And since we have a little more time today, I'm going to share a few more details about just how we got where we are, and I'm also going to provide a little bit of a recap on what we heard last night. So, as I'm sure you might be aware by now, this symposium is part of the Planning Commission's work plan, and it's something that the commissioners get together as a group and decide what they're going to do. So this is our chosen work plan right now. And as Elizabeth's already said, we're a group of volunteer citizens, and we're appointed by council with a mandate to look at issues that are of relevance to the long-term future of the city. And just to summarise a little bit, the Commission's starting point for this initiative was an acknowledgement that the city has many policies that are supportive of sustainability goals, and they range from transportation to tree planting to homelessness reduction, and there's no doubt that it is a real priority at the city level. And at the same time, we've also discovered that there's a lot of really exciting neighbourhood initiatives related to sustainability, many of which it was great to hear about last night. And actually, we're going to be hearing about some more of them in a little bit more detail later. However, when we reviewed City Plan's directions for a city of neighbourhoods, and as we sort of tuned into local media, attended meetings, public hearings, citywide events, it's hard not to notice that the city's efforts to implement broad citywide policies with the goal of enhancing sustainability sometimes meet with resistance at the neighbourhood level. And so if we all want supposedly the same thing, then why is it so difficult to achieve it? So hence the symposium. And again, just what we set out to try and work out was how can citywide and neighbourhood sustainability plans mesh? Just along the way, we did, in the course of planning this, consult with we had a neighbourhood advisory group. We also had an event where we met with city staff, and also with a group that we defined as sustainability practitioners. And some of those people are back today as a sort of in a sort of an advisory helping capacity. And I think they have different coloured dots. I don't know what colour they are, but if it's not green, they've got a different coloured dot anyway. So you might run into some of those people through the day. We wanted to try and make sure that those of you attending the symposium represented the broadest cross-section of the city possible. And that was both geographically and in terms of how you contribute to sustainability. So the places where you touch the elephant. And all the people who weren't here last night are now going, huh? But if you were here, you know we talked about elephants. You can ask someone about it later. But we also wanted to ensure that there was equity between neighbourhoods. And that was something that was raised last night by one of the speakers at the end. He talked about how there were neighbourhoods who were here and neighbourhoods that weren't. And that's why when we set out on this, we asked each neighbourhood to choose 5 local organisations to attend today. And I can tell you that despite somewhat Herculean efforts by the commissioners and the neighbourhood representatives, we haven't actually been able to manage that. There's some neighbourhoods that aren't formally represented here today. However, a vast majority are. And also there are neighbourhoods here today. There are neighbourhoods where there were like so many enthusiastic organisations that we were sort of trying to narrow them down to 5. We also found that there were others where it was hard to find 5. There were some organisations where if someone wasn't able to make it, it was really easy to find somebody to step in and fill in for them, and others that were really challenged to find somebody to do that. Now we understand, like, neighbourhood organisations are volunteers, they're busy people, they have lives, families, but I think there's a real lesson to be learned in that for what we're trying to do, because we have to learn that there's a challenge to be addressed if we want to ensure that all neighbourhoods have adequate capacity to ensure equity between neighbourhoods and between neighbourhoods in the city. then that's one of the things we'll have to address, and some of you will have an opportunity to talk about that later on this morning. And one of the other challenges that became clear just along the way was that sustainability means different things to different people, which is why we really devoted last night to trying to find some commonalities and core principles so that we could take them through to the discussions today. Now we've left, for those of you, well, even for everybody, we've left the results of last night's dialogue up around the wall so that you can refer to it today. I encourage you to just take a cruise past it and see the sorts of things that people wrote up about what they thought was needed for a sustainable neighbourhood. We were really thrilled by the energy and the enthusiasm of the presenters. Like, weren't they great? They were just some really good people. It was great to hear the stories and the way they shared their passion and their vision so generously. And many participants have told us that they felt really energized and inspired by that, and I think we did too. I just wanted to share some key themes you took away from last night. I think when you look at all the walls and the clusters of stickies, there's a real message. There's a number of really interesting comments up there. There's comments related to governance, transit, cycling, recycling, parks. But just look at the size of the big clump over there that deals with feelings, relationships, knowing your neighbour, fenceless communities, love, acceptance of diversity. There's a whole big clump in the corner there. I think it's the biggest one of the lot. And I must admit, obviously this event happened last night. I'm supposed to summarize it this morning. I haven't really had any chance to talk in depth with other commissioners about what they feel about it, so my observations on this are going to be largely personal. But I was lying in my bed last night trying to work out what I was going to say, and it seemed to me, I started off at the start of the night and I sort of said that, this definition that we have of sustainability, this big UN definition, to me didn't seem to be very relevant. And then Margaret Mahan stood up and said, this definition is really important to me. I lead my whole life by it. And I thought, well, gosh, isn't that interesting? The idea that you can make that scale jump from something so big to something so small and so personal. And I sometimes want to be, because I'm the sort of detail person, I'm the person and I'm wondering, okay, so say I tried to make the scale jump the other way, from the bottom up. So if you start with personal relationships and then try to build it up to a bigger thing. So you get another story now, I'm sorry. When I first emigrated to Canada, in case you didn't notice, I wasn't born here. When I first came to Canada, I came from Northern Ireland. I came from Belfast. I grew up in Belfast in the 70s and 80s. And I was really attracted to Canada because it seemed to me a really open, free place. I grew up in a sort of climate of violence and sectarianism, and Canada just seemed like a great place. And I arrived here and I moved into a rental apartment in the city of Vancouver, and I was so homesick. I was used to knowing my neighbours, I was used to knowing everything that was going on, I was used to being so involved in my community, and my neighbours were strangers. I didn't know who they were. And I finally got a job, we got set up, we had enough money to buy our first house in Canada. By that you know that it was more than 10 years ago because we couldn't do it now. I still wanted to go home, but my husband, he was doing quite well and he really liked it. And so I went along with it. Okay, we'll buy a house, well maybe we'll stay. And we were moving all the boxes into the house. We're lugging all these boxes, we're moving in. And a lady came down the street with a tin and a beautiful, warm, fresh-baked cinnamon cake. And she handed it over to us and she said, "Welcome to the neighbourhood." And I can honestly say that was the turning point when I realized that maybe this Canada thing was going to work out after all. And I have never looked back. I still am really passionate about relationships. I think it's really important. So say you took this relationship thing and you tried to build it up. It's just another view of sustainability. It might not be right, but I just thought I would follow it through. First, you get to know your neighbour. And then you get to know the people on your street. And then you form a group and you organise around something you really want. Maybe it's a park, a community garden, a library, or you want your local school to stay open. And then suddenly when you walk down the street, you're able to nod and say hello to everybody. You're able to ask, how did your interview go? Did you find your cat? You know all the things that are going on. And then next, some opportunity comes up to get involved in a local arts organisation or a recycling initiative, and suddenly you're out almost every night. You're fundraising, you're organising, you're writing grant proposals, but more importantly, you belong. And from that place, you feel empathy for others. You feel empathy for seniors who are facing eviction. You feel empathy for the guy down the street who raids your blue bin before the recycling truck arrives. Maybe you hear a story on CBC about a neighbourhood in Nigeria that's facing eviction because of an oil drilling expansion, and you can make that connection because you realise they're a community and they're a neighbourhood, just like yours. And to me, that's sort of the beauty of it. It's that sort of scale jump thing that allows you to move effortlessly between your relationship with your neighbour and your relationship with the planet. And we've got to somehow make that connection the whole way through. So that was what I really learned. I mean, there would be any number of other things we could take away, but I just thought I would pick that one. So you move effortlessly sort of between your neighbourhood and the fate of millions of other neighbourhoods that make up the planet. You care about what happens to them, and that makes all the difference. So our goal today is to come up with some really concrete ideas and actions that can make a difference to our neighbourhoods. That'll make them strong and that'll make them sustainable. And we want to come away with concrete ideas, strategies, and recommendations that the Planning Commission can take to Council. And we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about that. So I'm going to pass back to Jeff now. Thanks very much.